I'm Brett Wiedmann, big game biologist with the North Dakota Game and Fish Department. Bighorn sheep are doing pretty well. We've had several years of record counts. 2024, our last survey, was down a little bit from 2023. 2023 was the record count, but 2024 was still the second highest count on record. Our adult ewes and adult rams were still near record levels, but in 2024 our lamb recruitment was down about 22% from 2023. Could be due to a number of factors, predation and drought, and just the fact that our ewes have been recruiting a lot of lambs over the last few years, so sometimes they just kind of take a year off, but all in all, our adult segment of the population is doing really well. As I have noticed this observing bighorns where, let's say you have a group of 15 ewes and they'll have 3 years of recruiting a lot of lambs, they're doing really well. Then on year 4, you'll count them, I'll count them, and zero, no lambs. So the immediate reaction is there disease? Do they have disease in the population where these lambs have died of pneumonia? The following year then, all of a sudden the lambs are back. So they invest a lot of energy into recruiting lambs, nursing those lambs, and they're very dedicated to their young. So it just there's a lot of variability, and just so some years it can just be attributed to kind of taking a year off, putting on body weight again, feeding, rather than raising another lamb. Game and Fish was really ahead of their time introducing bighorn sheep in 1956. However, I think if they had to do it again, it probably wasn't the best source population for North Dakota. They kind of came from a more temperate climate in British Columbia, and then they're dropped off in North Dakota and it's 35 below and frigid. Those are more, the bighorn sheep from British Columbia were a little smaller, a little better adapted to more of a mild climate. So we really struggled for about 40 years managing bighorn sheep because it was kind of like jamming a square peg into a round hole. They just didn't quite fit here. Then when Montana graciously offered us bighorn sheep from the breaks of Montana, they just absolutely took off. So it really is the heyday. The hunting's fantastic. These Montana sheep are big-bodied, which as a biologist, that's what I like to see. But what corresponds with these big-bodied sheep from Montana are also bighorn, so the rams, we're harvesting tremendous rams in North Dakota right now. So it is the heyday of bighorn sheep in North Dakota since the reintroduction in 1956. The main thing is the body side, they're just big. I mean, they can handle these extreme winters that we have in North Dakota, where these ewes are bred in November, and then they can maintain that body condition throughout a really brutal winter, and then come May, right around May 1st, they start giving birth to their lambs. Bigger lambs, athletic lambs equals higher survival. That's really what it comes down to. And then higher adult survival because you don't lose those adults during extreme winters as well. The population managed by Game and Fish, 3 affiliated tribes, and the north unit of the park. We have around just under 500 bighorn sheep in the state, and we feel that we could probably get up to about 750 is kind of the goal. The problem is that disease event we had in 2014, we still have animals carrying mycoplasma. So we have a lot of patches of habitat where we could introduce bighorn sheep, but we cannot because they could interact with our resident bighorns and cause pneumonia. So at this point, we have no plans in the near future for any more introductions of bighorn sheep. We had a die-off in the late 90s where a lot of domestic goats were introduced into bighorn range, and we believe that in 2014, the most likely scenario was contact with domestic sheep. The strain of mycoplasma in our population wasn't quite as virulent as some other states have experienced, so they recovered pretty rapidly to that. And it really boils down to, again, this old story of the bighorns we introduced from Montana. So we always thank our friends in Montana Fish, Wildlife, and Parks. They just recruit a lot of lambs and very high lamb recruitment rates. And over the years then, those populations just grow. So we've had, really 10 years of really high lamb recruitment, high population growth. And we've seen that, up and down throughout the northern Badlands. So when we introduced the Montana bighorn sheep in 2006 and then again in 2007, that really was changed the paradigm of management of bighorn sheep in North Dakota. We did introduce 25 bighorn sheep from Alberta in 2014, and that is the year we had our die-off in another herd, but the pathogens got into that population, and most of them died in 2014. We have one left. We still have one ewe left. 3 survived the die-off, 3 young ewes, and there's 1 ewe left in Bicycle Creek, and she's now the boss ewe of that herd, and there's about 25 ewes in that herd. So she's had a lot of babies. We'll feel confident with introducing bighorn sheep. We look at 3 factors. Adult survival, we want that over 90% for adults and ewes. We want to see 3 consecutive years of at least 25% lamb recruitment. That's an indicator that the population does not have virulent strains of mycoplasma. And then we want to go 3 consecutive years without any clinical signs of pneumonia. So when I'm doing my summer count, we don't want to see coughing lambs or nasal discharge from animals. And so we're getting there, but we're not quite there. When I do my summer count, I will still see lambs coughing. And that's indicative of pneumonia. Now, that doesn't mean it's fatal to that lamb. Most of them recover because this strain is not that bad. But you don't want to bring in healthy bighorns and then all of a sudden they contract mycoplasma from our resin sheep, and then they start dying of pneumonia. The bighorn sheep south of Interstate 94 are not doing too well. We have around 15 remaining. We never put any Montana sheep south of the interstate. Those are all the original, we call them the British Columbia ecotype down there. We had a major disease event in the late 90s. This we talked about earlier. You don't introduce healthy bighorn sheep into a population of sick bighorn sheep. So at this point, it's just a remnant population. At some point, depopulate the southern Badlands, and we're comfortable with the distance between that habitat and domestic sheep. We would look at reintroducing larger Rocky Mountain bighorn sheep into the southern Badlands. There's good habitat. The best habitat in North Dakota is by far north of the interstate, much bigger, much rougher, these massive drainages. They're very different habitat types. The south is more buttes, where they live around the rim of these buttes. There's a lot more habitat up north. So down south we'll never have the numbers of the northern Badlands. We collaborated with three affiliated tribes Fish and Wildlife Division in 2020, and we introduced 30 bighorn sheep to the reservation in 2 areas, north of the Little Missouri River, south of the Little Missouri River. They've done very well. They've almost tripled since the introduction. And they are, again, these are the Rocky Mountain bighorns from central Montana, from Rocky Boys Reservation. They came from a reservation north of the Missouri River breaks, and they have done just remarkably well. Big sheep. Yeah, lots of food up there, lots of habitat. When we collaborated with 3 affiliated tribes, we agreed that Game and Fish would conduct the translocation, veterinary crew, capture crew, radio callers, and then we would co-manage that population for several years following the release. And then in return, North Dakota Game and Fish would receive 3 hunting licenses once that population commences a hunting season, which should be coming up pretty soon. So 3 sportsmen in North Dakota, because of that project, will be able to hunt bighorn sheep on the reservation, and that'll be just a fantastic hunt. So a problem area we had in North Dakota for many years was along Highway 85, near the Long X Bridge, where you cross the Little Missouri River near the north unit of the park. We had a lot of bighorn sheep being killed by vehicles there with the increased oil traffic. It was just constant traffic, fast traffic. We have females on the west side of the highway and on the east side of the highway, so of course rams are crossing back and forth, getting hit. Ewes are feeding up to the road edge. So we collaborated with State Highway Department and Federal Highway Department. And when they were gonna 4-lane that area, so we thought, wow, I mean, nothing's gonna get across that highway. So we constructed an wildlife underpass at that area using our location data from our GPS collars, the best place to put that. Designed a massive underpass there, and then fenced the highway that would funnel bighorn sheep and mule deer and elk and everything else to that wildlife crossing. And we put in jump outs. It was a pretty big project. And then once it's complete, you don't know how well it's gonna work. Is it actually going to work? Bighorn sheep do not want to go into tunnels because they survive by their eyesight, so we were a little bit nervous that they wouldn't want to go into this thing. and it has far exceeded our expectations. We've had hundreds of crossings of bighorn sheep through the underpass. Thousands of mule deer have gone through as well. We've not had a single bighorn sheep killed on that stretch of highway since that project was complete. And I think we're at about 3 mule deer that just happened to go around the end of the fence and down. So not only has that saved a lot of mule deer, a lot of bighorn sheep, but it's also a safety factor for the public, where we've prevented a lot of collisions coming down a real steep hill, coming down to that bridge where they're not coming down in the middle of the night and there's a big group of mule deer standing on the road. So it has just worked phenomenally well. That is now our second largest herd in the state, the Long-X herd. There's like 75 bighorn sheep in there now. So you take away those mortalities due to vehicle strikes, and they're really taking off now. We'll commence the 2025 survey in July. It takes about 2 months. I actually hike into every single little population of bighorn sheep, male and female, count classified. So we're hoping that our lamb recruitment improves in 2025, and we're expecting it to. We have GPS collars now in every single subgroup of bighorn sheep in the Badlands. So basically, when I do my survey at 6 a.m., I get all those locations to my phone. So I'm out there, let's say I want to count the Bicycle Creek herd, the females. Oh, there they are. I go out there, ATV, whatever, hike on in, and then count them. I count them, I leave, they never know I was there. So it's a really efficient methodology for survey. Years ago, when we had VHF collars, we had to do that from an airplane. So I would drive out, our plane would fly out, we'd locate them from the air, land, and then hike in. So a lot more money was going into the survey. Now there's no airplane needed. I just I get locations on my phone and count them. So our counts are very accurate. If let's say I count a female group one year and there's 25 ewes, then I hike in the next year and I find the collars and there's 8. I obviously know that they have broken away from the main group. So then I will recount that group of females. And then you might go out 3 weeks later, then it's 27 ewes altogether. So when we say herd of bighorn sheep, we're really talking about is a group that lives in a drainage. Sometimes they're in one group, you might have 25 ewes. Sometimes there's 5 there, 10 there, 3 there, 2 there. So that's why it takes so much time to get an accurate count. You want to find every single little subgroup of sheep in the Badlands. During July and August, I count classify all males, females, lambs. And then the following March, as lambs approach 1 year of age, I will then recount the lambs the following March to determine lamb recruitment. So we base the count on a biological year, May 1st to April 30th, not a calendar year. That's why we don't have any data for 2025 yet. That will not be completed until March of 2026.